Hi guys, in the last tutorial we look at introduction to SQL for data analyst. In this tutorial we're going to move straight into the course. So we're going to be looking at the background information, and after this we look at other concepts. So again, just like a reminder, this is about SQL for data analyst. For those out there who want to become a data analyst with SQL skill. As a data analyst, you need SQL skill in order to be able to analyze data. So quickly, let's look at the background. A lot of organizations out there, a lot of companies generate tons of data every day. As a matter of fact, they generate tons of data every second, every minute. Name any organization you know, all the organizations you see around. They generate tons of data. And the irony of this is the data is generated is stored somewhere and it's just lying there. Nobody is drawing insight from the data. So when a company generates data, you can use the same data to make important and crucial business decisions. But when an organization generates data and the data is just stored somewhere, is kept somewhere without you looking at it, data itself is an information asset. It is the greatest asset that any organization has. So if it's that powerful, if it's that important, then your data has to be processed so that you can make decisions from that data to help the business. Let's look at some companies that we all know. Everybody knows Amazon. So when you look at Amazon, Amazon customers have 310 million customers for Amazons. Now, this information would have customer name, customer address, um, products, um, shipping information, and so many other information about each customer. All the orders you've made so far, the years that you've been transacting with Amazon, this data is generated every day because people buy stuff from Amazon every day. And the data goes straight to the database. Amazon has 750,000 employees. This information is as at 2019, last year, and this keeps changing every day. The number of customers go up every day, and probably the number of employees too. So if this data is just stored somewhere and nobody is looking at it, and this data is stored somewhere nobody is looking at it, the same thing goes for all the other companies. Netflix subscribers, 167 million subscribers. Verizon will have 118 million customers. Bank of America will have 66 million customers. Google 1.5 billion Gmail users. 1.2 billion Microsoft users and 148,000 employees for Microsoft. And so on and so forth. This is just to give us background information to see tons of data that organizations are generating every day. Okay, so if we have this kind of data, you are beginning to see why analysis is important. What insight can we draw from this data? What kind of information can we get from this data? What kind of deduction can we make from this data? Okay, so that is to give us background information about why do I need this training? Is this meant for me? Now, at this point, you are beginning to see the benefit why your job role as a data analyst is so important that organizations don't joke with it, because the most critical asset an organization has is its data. Every other thing is secondary. The most critical asset of any organization anywhere in the world is the data the organization generates, the tons of data in their database. So you as a data analyst, your role is so crucial because you help the organization to analyze data and draw useful insight, relevant business insight from the data. Okay, so let's look at the definition of data analysis itself. Of course, you already know, as you are viewing, as you are watching, you already know you want to become a data analyst and you are interested in this tutorial. So it will be important for you to know what exactly is data analysis. It's a process of inspecting, cleansing, transforming data with the goal of discovering useful information, informing conclusions, and supporting decision making. What does this mean? Now, you have seen that if I take you back to this, you have already seen that organizations have data in their database, and this data is being generated in tons per seconds, per minute, every day, every week. And imagine organizations that have been existing for 100 years, for 50 years. Imagine the kind of transaction data that such organization will have. Okay, so what this is saying is that the process of data analysis itself is to inspect this data that an organization have. Now, when you inspect that data, you need to cleanse the data. What does this mean? Data in raw form usually are not 100% clean. You find out that some data might be missing. You see some inconsistencies in data. That's what we mean by bad data. So raw data most of the times are not 100% good. So we have bad data, or you say we have dirty data. And so you need to cleanse it. Some data is missing, some data is not consistent, and so many other things. So whatever it is that you need to do to make that data better is cleansing. That's what you are doing. And after cleansing, if you need to transform the data, maybe you need to give it another name, maybe you need to change something in the data. That's the transformation you are doing. And the reason why you are doing this is because if you inspect data as a data analyst and you find out that there are some inconsistencies, if you don't clean the inconsistencies to make sure that this data is standardized, whatever information or whatever conclusion you want to draw from that data might not be reliable. It might be misleading. So that's why you don't just inspect the data, you check in the process of inspecting to see that everything is consistent and nothing is missing. If you find out something is missing and you see any inconsistencies, then you need to cleanse. If you need to transform, you need to do the transformation as well. So that at the end of the day, before you make any decision, you are sure that the data is reliable so that you don't mislead the business. Okay, so I believe you are beginning to connect the dots at this point. I want you to understand this theoretical part of this tutorial. Like I said in the previous tutorial, that the way this course is structured is first to look at the theoretical part, which is what we are looking at right now, so that you understand your role as a data analyst, your responsibilities, your day-to-day work. You know the meaning of data analysis itself, and if there are steps involved in data analysis, you already know them. Before we move into the second phase of this tutorial, which is the hands-on, that's the SQL itself. Okay, so I want you to pay attention at this point because this will set the tone for the next tutorial. So if you have questions, you can ask me. If you have comments, just drop your comment and everything. And my email is also available for you. Okay, you can send me email. So this is telling us that the whole process of data analysis is not beyond inspecting. What are you inspecting? You are inspecting data. Wherever data is kept in an organization in the database, you are inspecting that. And if you see any inconsistency, something is missing, you cleanse it. If you need to transform data, maybe change column name, or you need to change anything in the data, whatever transformation you need to do, you make sure it's done, because your goal of inspecting and cleansing and transforming is to be able to draw useful conclusion that can support decision making for the business. And so you are doing all this inspecting, cleansing, and transformation in order to make sure that decision making that has been drawn, insight that has been drawn from this data is reliable. And what to make it reliable? This process of inspecting the data, of cleansing the data, and of transforming the data. Now, in data analysis, there are five major steps involved in data analysis. Okay, the very first step in data analysis is to define why you need data analysis. Organizations usually would define why they need data analysis, and this comes in form of what problem are we trying to solve? Are we trying to increase profit margin? Are we trying to increase sales? Are we do we increase employee salary? There would always be a business problem, a business requirement. At this point, we are talking about problem definition. Before you do anything, you first want to know why you are doing it. The same thing goes for business as well. Okay, before an organization says we need data analysis, we need to analyze our data, there must be a problem on ground. They must be facing a particular problem that needs solution. That is, there is a question that needs to be answered. So the very first stage for an organization is to define why data analysis is needed. What business problem are we trying to solve? What business questions are we trying to answer? Okay, so if that is done, the problem definition phase is over. The next thing you want to do is to collect data from different sources. Now, if you have a problem and you need to find solution, like I said, the greatest asset an organization have is its data. So in order to provide answers to the questions at the problem definition stage, what you want to do is to begin to collect data from different sources, because it's from this data that you want to bring out answers to answer business questions. It's from this data you want to bring out solutions to business problems. So once you define the reason why you need data analysis, the next thing you want to do is to begin to collect or gather data from different sources in order to satisfy the business requirement, which is still a problem at phase one. So you look for different data sources, and what does this mean? We are going to look at this in more details, the data sources. But here, just take it from here that it means where data is being stored, maybe the database, wherever it's being stored. Okay, look at this as data that is being stored in the database. We are going to go into details of, so what is database, what is data source, and what is data itself. Okay, so just bear with me. Whatever you can catch at this point, make sure you catch it. And the more reason why I want you to make sure that you don't miss any of my tutorial as I upload them, because what we are doing now, we lay a foundation for the next tutorial, and like that we keep going like that. So whatever is not clear at this point, I promise it will be clearer as we go. And so when data is being collected at this stage, like we already know in the definition what data cleansing is. So once your data is collected, it's collected the way it is. You need to inspect the data and see if there's any need to clean. Most of the time, there's usually a reason to clean our data because we don't want to mislead the management. We don't want to provide the wrong answers to business questions. We don't want to provide solutions that will not help the organization. So we need to cleanse or transform the data that we already gather, that we already collect. We need to cleanse it. Okay, once that is done, it means transformation has been done, cleansing has been done. We are now sure that our data is good. We don't have a bad data anymore. So the moment that is done, we begin to analyze the data. And what does this mean? If you're analyzing data, we have already seen that analyzing data means that you are trying to draw conclusions, useful insights from that data. That's the whole essence of doing this. So when you draw useful conclusions and insights from here as a data, you prepare your report. So at stage 5, you interpret results and apply them. This is your report. When you draw, by analyzing this data, you draw a conclusion, you interpret it, and you prepare your results. And this is what you want to give to the management as a solution or as an answer to the business questions that the management is asking. So to iterate again, organizations before going into data analysis would have business problem or business questions or requirement to satisfy. And in order to do that, a data analyst will receive these requirements or this problem will be presented to a data analyst. And the next course of action is to collect data from different sources. And we said in this context, we want to assume that the source is the database. What is a database? Where data is stored in relational table. And we are going to go into details of all of this. Once we have sourced the data, we look at the data to check if there's any inconsistencies, if there's any bad data, if any value is missing. And we do this because we don't want to present an unreliable report to the management. So we need to go through this process of making sure that the data is good. We don't just assume that it's fine. We need to inspect it. We need to cleanse it. We need to transform the data. And that way we are sure that the data we are working with, the data we are analyzing is fine. When we analyze this data, we present our result to the management. And that result should be the one that will satisfy the business requirement that is asked or the problem definition that is documented at stage 1. At this stage 4, where you are analyzing data, how are you analyzing it? What are you using to analyze this data? That is where SQL comes in. That is where SQL comes in. What are you using to clean data? How are you cleansing your data? That is where your SQL for data analyst comes in. The reason why you want to become a data analyst with SQL skill is to be able to deliver in your line of duty in order to provide solutions to business problems. That skill is required for you to be able to do this, collect data from different sources, pull data from different sources, retrieve data from different sources, or fetch data from different sources. You need your SQL skill to do all of this. Okay? You need your SQL skill to do all of that. So also you you also want to know what is your job, your responsibility, as a data analyst. But before that, now that you already know what data analysis is, then who is a data analyst? Now you know what data analysis is and the processes involved, the steps involved in data analysis. Then who is a data analyst? A data analyst is someone who collects, processes, and performs statistical analysis on data. He or she can translate numbers and data into plain English in order to help organizations and companies understand how to make better business decisions. Now, you can see that this is not different from the definition of data analysis itself. So it's just saying that for every steps or every process in data analysis, the process of collecting, acquiring, or gathering data, and the process of cleansing data, the process of transforming data, that is what a data analyst typically does every day on a day-to-day basis at work. Someone who collects the data collection is done by you as a data analyst. And the data is collected from where? Different data sources. As we mentioned in the definition, you collect the data from different data sources. And we are assuming that the data source in this context is the database. And what is a database? Is where data is stored. We'll go into more details of that. And then once this data is collected, you process the data. What is the processes? What are we talking about here? What are the processes involved here? So we are talking about transforming the data, cleansing the data, whatever you need to do to make the data good. Whatever value is missing, whatever value is inconsistent, those are the things that will make you transform or cleanse data. And that's what is happening here. And when you do that, you perform statistical analysis on that data. Maybe you want to know uh, what are the quantity of goods sold from um, January to March, or maybe you want to know the highest paid employee, or you want to know the best selling product out of all the product of your companies. Because, like I said, there is always a problem statement. There's always a requirement, always a questions to be answered. So the reason why after you have collected and cleansed and transformed your data, you perform statistical analysis on data. What will enable you to do all this as a data analyst, to collect, to process, and to perform statistical analysis is your SQL. That's the skill you need. And that will come up as the second phase of this tutorial. So just bear with me, make sure that you understand. If you need to watch this tutorial over and over again, make sure that you understand this foundation that we are laying. Because by the time we get to the second phase, it's going to be hands-on. We're going to be writing structured query language. We're going to be writing some kind of code. So this is still theoretical. Make sure that you go over this over and over again to understand it. And once that is done, you present your findings to the management. You are doing that in order for the business to be able to make important decisions. It's your findings that will help the business to make important decisions. Now, what exactly is data? How do I collect this data? How do I process it and perform statistical analysis on the data? And where is this data coming from? Where am I getting it from? We have answered all these questions. What is data? We'll go into more details. How to get the data, to process the data, and perform statistical analysis on the data is the SQL skill that you want to learn, that will help you in doing all this, that will help you provide answers to this how. And where is the data coming from? The data is coming from a database. We're going to spend time, we dwell on what is a database, what is data. And those are the concepts we'll be looking at in the next lesson. So today we have looked at a background of uh, companies that generate tons of data every day, and why they need to analyze this, because the data cannot just be sitting there. We have also looked at what is data analysis and steps involved in data analysis, who is a data analyst. So in the next tutorial, what you should expect is a definition of concepts of key terminologies like data and database data sources. Okay, so take your time, watch the tutorial over and over again, and make sure you help a friend. If you have friends that are also interested in becoming a data analyst in 2020, make sure that you let them know that there is a tutorial on YouTube which is simple enough for anyone to understand. My targets are those who are fresh, who are green, who have little or no experience in IT, but they are interested in joining the IT um, industry. They want to get a job in IT. I package this tutorial in a way that anybody can learn this, and you'll be able to land your dream job as soon as you are done with the training, and with practice as well, you'll be able to land your job. Thank you so much for your